Hello and welcome to the shed. In today's video we're going to be looking at specialist planes. Hope you enjoy. So I know there's probably a lot more than what I actually have here, but these are the ones that I've got, or all the ones that I could find. I don't use some of these that much, but what I wanted to do is go through all the ones that I've got here, talk a little bit about them. Some of them are different variations of brands of them, and then I'll go through the three that I think are the most vital for you to actually have and use. So let's jump in and get started. So let's just go through a quick overview of what I've got. I've got a rebate plane, I've got 3 router planes, I have a radius plane, I have a scraper plane, I have a tongue and groove plane, I have a Stanley 45, I have a Carter combination plane, I have another plough plane here, and I have a vintage wooden plough plane as well. So let's just go through each of these one by one and have a closer look. So what we have here is the rebate or rabbit plane, depending on which country you're from. This one is the number 78, so this is actually the Stanley one. There's lots of other knockoffs and all sorts that come around with this one, but this happens to be the Stanley one. You've got to be careful with some of the knockoffs. Some of them don't function well. I got one from Carbotech here in Australia, and that thing was terrible. Like, the actual plane was fine, the way it held was fine, but the blade was really awful. So that's just something to watch out for. So obviously the purpose of these is for doing rebates or rabbits, whether it's along or across the grain. This will do both. It has a cross grain nicker here for doing across the grain, depth stop, fence, depth adjuster, blade, everything you would expect a plane to have. A nice reference to flat sole along here, and it does a very good job at doing those rebates or rabbits on the edge of your boards, and that's solely the purpose of this plane. So what we have here with the router plane, I have a couple of Melbourne Tool Company ones here that I haven't really used much. They're pretty new when I bought the whole kit, and I haven't had a chance to really have a play with them. And then what I've got here is a record number 71 with what's called an open mouth. So we see this part here, that's considered the open mouth, and it has this little foot to support it, so you can actually still go on the edge of thin boards, and you can use that to actually help with that. Now, there's also a closed mouth version that Stanley and Record both sold, and it doesn't have this piece here. It has the metal closed this way, so you've just got the hole there and no step here because it's got the piece of metal in front. So they're the two differences when it comes to the vintage style. Now, a router plane is quite versatile for helping to clean out mortises and dados and all sorts of things for hinges, joinery, and just a whole host of other things where you need something that's referenced flat and parallel to the top of your board for, say, a half lap, or any other joinery, any little bits that you need to clean out. If you've done rebates by hand, you can use it to clean those out. Yeah, it's just a very versatile. You can use them for all sorts of little bits of inlay with different blades and all that sort of thing. So it's a very versatile tool, and I think that's a really good one to have. But we'll circle back to that when we look at the 3 best. So what we have here is a Stanley number 113 compass plane. Now, what happens with this? We can see that sole is concave. If I turn it the other way, just keep my hand out of the way, we can convex the sole. So the sole purpose of this plane is for doing arcs. If you've got a circle of a tabletop, you can use this to clean the whole thing out after you've chopped it out with a use a bandsaw or a turning saw. This can do that work for you. Yeah, arcs on stretchers or anything like that. So any arc that you want, you can actually use this to clean them up, but you can also use it to actually instigate the arcs. Now, this one was molded off the old wooden ones, and they were actually a fixed body in a shape that was convex or concave. So this has some advantage over those because you can choose whatever arc it is that you actually want just by adjusting it. Now, that is very specialized, and for the most part you're probably not going to need it. So what we have here is a Stanley number 12.5 scraper plane. Not to be confused with the cabinet scraper that Stanley also produced. This is the scraper plane, and it has more variation than you can get with the cabinet scraper. You can see we have a thinner blade here, it's locked in here, and the way this works is you adjust one and turn the other, so we can move this head up high, or we loosen this one and turn it the other way, and we can adjust the head down. This is all to get the perfect angle to attack for whatever timber you're working on, and to match it with whatever angle you actually got your hook on it when you used a burnisher to turn a bird, just like on a normal scraper. You still need to use a burnisher, and you still need to turn that hook. Now, depending on where that hook gets, you can adjust the head of this to get it just perfect. So what happens with this, adjusting this up and down, so if we adjust it up, it actually protrudes the cabinet scraper further out of the sole, and if we do it the other way, moving it forward, it actually retracts it. There is no bending of this scraper like you would expect in a cabinet scraper or with a card scraper. This actually has a rosewood handle that you can see here, and features a rosewood sole, and you can see how wide that mouth is on the bottom here. That's because that's to allow the entire operation through the entire movement of that head for the scraper to actually stick out at the bottom. Now, this can do some very, very heavy scraper work. It can also do some very, very fine scraper work. And I did do an entire video dedicated to how this operates and everything about it previously, so I'll leave that link down below for you. Now, a plane that I only recently got, and this happens to be the Lie-Nielsen version of the Stanley number 48 tongue and groove plane. Now, in the upcoming tool chest build for this, I'm going to be doing tongue and groove joinery for some panels and whatnot, so that's why I've ended up getting this. I've been looking to get a second-hand one for a while, and they're very, very difficult to get here in Australia, and they're even more expensive than these ones, the ones that I have seen. So I've gone with this one. This is the number 48. I believe there was a 48.5 or something. There's a second one. This one's designed for, I believe it was 3/4 inch stock, and there's another one that's designed for 1/2 inch stock. I just can't quite remember the number, so there's two different versions of it. Now, how does this work? Well, let's just pop this. So it has a swinging fence here that allows us to go from groove mode and then into tongue mode. So at the moment here it's in groove mode. Both the edges of this blade are exposed, and it'll make a groove down the middle of your board. The idea is that it will center on 3/4 inch stock, or about 19mm stock, 18mm stock. The idea is it'll center that groove, and also the tongue down the middle of them. So as long as you reference off the front face, it doesn't matter if you use it on wider stock, the tongue will be off-centered, but you need to use the same reference with this. The beauty is that it's all done in the one plane, and all you have to do is pull this pin, flick it around, and you're straight into work doing the other side of your board. So it's a very quick and versatile tool, and if you're going to be doing lots of tongue and groove, I think it's kind of an essential tool, to be honest. So what I've got here is two different versions of the Plough plane. This one is a Atkins & Sons from Sheffield, England, and this one is a record number 044 or 44 Plough plane. This one looks pretty rusty. Some of you might have seen that I've actually had a Plough plane in the past that I've used, and the skate was damaged on it when I purchased it, so this is a new one that I haven't actually had time to give a restoration, because I haven't actually done that many grooves recently. And I have the Stanley 45 that I have been using with it set up for that, and we'll talk about that when we get to those combinations. So the whole point of these planes is to plough a groove. So you're using them with the grain, always with the grain. They don't have cross-grain knickers, they are not designed to go across the grain. Although you might be able to get them to do a dado, they're not designed for that. And you can tell that they're not designed for that because generally you're not probably going to have a dado within this 150 mil of the end of your board. So that's where you actually have to do your dados by hand. There's not really any sort of thing called a dado plane. So these are always used with the grain, and they're for ploughing grooves, the captive backs of cabinets, the bottom of boxes, drawers, all that sort of thing. That's what they're used for. And if you haven't seen my videos on how to do these by hand, the grooves, I'll leave those links down below. But if you've ever used one of these planes, it speeds the process up so much that you really wouldn't want to be without it if you're going to be doing lots of them. So they're quite vital whether you get this style. I'm not 100% sure. I'm pretty sure Stanley has a version of these. You can get new ones of these, and they tend to be the small plows that have actually got like a little thin wire handle. I didn't like that, so that's why I opted for this style that actually has a proper 4-finger gripped plane, or you can 3-finger grip them, but 4 fingers, even my large fingers, get in there. And this is just a really nice plane to have, and I can't really think I'd do without it because it just works so well. It just makes the job that much easier. Now, that brings me into combination planes. As I said before, this one is a Stanley number 45. There is another combination plane that Stanley made called a 55, and that's just larger with a second skate on this side and a second fence, and it's got a lot more attachments to it. And then what I've got here is actually one that came along with my plough plane, and this one is a Carter's combination plane, as I understand. This one's a little bit seized up because, once again, I haven't actually had a chance to look at this, but I know it's a combination plane of sorts because it actually has a little skate in here. So this secondary one next to the main one, that is called a skate, and that is for supporting the plane when you go further in from the edge. You can see that this is much larger than that Carter one, and it too has this second skate. This actually has both its cross-grain knickers intact. And the idea is, you can see here that I've got a wider blade, and I can set a skate on either side. So the body lines up here, the skate lines up on the other side, and the blade is supported. So when you use wider blades, the whole idea of that skate is to support the other side of the blade. If you're going cross-grain, which this one can do dados cross-grain, it has 2 cross-grain knickers, so when you have that skate in place, it's going to sever the fibers ahead of the blade. So you can actually do quite a wide cut, and you'll actually have that cross-grain knicker to assist on both sides of the blade. The Stanley number 45 comes with a whole host of different blades. I believe there was 4, maybe 5 of these boxes. I only have 3 of them. I picked them up together. So this is 2, 3, and 4. So there's missing one. I'm not sure if there was a 5th one. I have a feeling there was a 5th one. And before I had those, I actually had these blades here, which are separate. I think I had Imperial and Metric in here. And this set I use in the Stanley 45, and I can also use them in the plough plane. They do hold in that plough plane, although the screw duster doesn't work when you do it that way. However, they do still function pretty good. So you can see there's a whole load of blades. The whole point of the Stanley 45 was to be the combination plane, the plane that could do everything. So you've got all these different profiles that you could do. The whole idea was that this one plane and the Stanley 45 as well, which had a few extra attachments, the whole idea was that you could replace an entire wall full of molding planes, essentially, plough planes, all that. You could do it all with the one plane. Now, in practice, it doesn't work so well at doing everything that they wanted it to do. It actually works extremely well, the 45 as a plough plane, because it's a little bit larger. Any harder woods, you can just hold it a little bit better, and so it actually excels at doing wider grooves for ploughing and, as I said, cross-grain operations as well. let's look at what I reckon the specialist plane should be that you have. Router plane. I prefer the handles on this vintage style. If you like one of these, go ahead, use one of them. I'm not going to comment on this one. I'm just going to say router plane at this point. I think plough plane, whichever version of a plough plane. I like this one because it's lightweight and it's small, so it's easy to pack. So there we have two. Now the third one, depending on what you do a lot of, if you do a lot of rebates, then the rebate plane is going to come in and be invaluable. Now, I know I said 3, so these could be the 3, or we could have another special mention, and so I'm going to add a 4th one here, the tongue and groove plane. I think these 4 are the most vital that you could use, and depending on what you do, you can change some of them in and out, but to be honest, I would always have the router plane and the plough plane in any kit that I have, whether it's a portable kit or not. They're the 2 that you're going to use by far the most, unless, as I said, you're doing lots of rebates, and then the rebate plane is going to be invaluable. So there you have it, folks. They're the 4 specialist planes that I think are most useful, and it's good to know about the rest, to know what's out there, depending on what you're doing. Each one of these does its own lane very well, depending on what it is, other than if you're looking at the combination plane, in which case it tries to cross all the lanes and try to be the specialist of all, master of none, and it turns out that it actually just works as a really good plough plane, in my opinion. So if you do get one of these, which tend to be quite expensive, especially if you're getting with all the blades, you might not want the plough plane, but I do like the versatility of the small plough. So what I'd love from you is to sound off if there's any specialist planes that you use, you really like and think are a must-have to have. Do mention them in the comments down below. While you're down there, do hit the thumbs up, hit the subscribe button. Don't forget to hit the bell and select all so you don't miss out on any notifications. And if you'd like to see the video that spurred this video, do check out the Traveler's Toolkit video that's right here. Bye for now.